The story begins with the death of Henry, a wealthy diamond tycoon, after he falls from the balcony of his bedroom. His funeral is attended by his family, including his two sons, Jack and Marvin. Henry's widow, Evelyn, sits in the front row. Marvin's wife approaches Evelyn and points out that the seat is reserved for family members, subtly suggesting that Evelyn should sit elsewhere. As the eldest son, Jack delivers a heartfelt eulogy, praising his father and pledging to take over the family business that Henry held dear. Jack is visibly emotional, with tears in his eyes, deeply saddened by his father's passing. Evelyn feels insulted by this display and leaves the funeral in distress. The episode then flashes back to Henry's birthday celebration. Evelyn watches as Macy, Jack's wife, prepares for the dinner party. Macy also scolds her daughter, Keita, for shouting at the housemaids. Meanwhile, Marvin's wife, Araya, welcomes their son Liam, who has flown in from New York for his grandfather's birthday. Evelyn heads to Henry's office, where he is having his evening tea. Jack and Marvin are there, trying to convince Henry to sign a business deal with their rival company. But Henry refuses. Despite their best efforts to persuade him, Henry remains firm in his decision, showing his strong will and foresight. Henry then asks Evelyn for her opinion on the matter, and she advises against rushing into the deal, suggesting they wait for a better time. Henry appreciates her advice and even encourages his sons to learn from Evelyn's wisdom. After Jack and Marvin leave, Henry tells Evelyn that her future will be much brighter. Later that evening, Evelyn helps prepare to Henry for the birthday dinner party. Both Jack and Marvin attempt to impress their father with lavish gifts. Marvin presents him with a Rolex watch, one of the most expensive in the world, which Henry had always wanted. Jack, on the other hand, gifts him a rare tree species obtained with great difficulty. Despite their efforts to win Henry's favor, he tells them that Evelyn has given him the greatest gift of all. Then, Henry stands up at the dinner and announces his decision to marry Evelyn, shocking everyone at the table. Evelyn, who was once a maid in their household, has now won Henry's heart. Henry then signs the marriage certificate at the table and gifts Evelyn a diamond necklace that had belonged to his late wife. Jack is upset to see his mother's necklace on Evelyn. That night, Henry takes Evelyn to his room, but Marvin follows them. He suggests that Henry should go on a honeymoon with Evelyn, offering to manage the business in his absence. Henry mocks Marvin, stating he would rather have a servant take over the business than leave it to him. Evelyn confides in Henry that she is afraid of Jack and Marvin, but Henry reassures her that being his wife will now protect her. He also tells her to move out of the servant quarters and into his room. Their private time is interrupted by Jack, who wants to speak with Henry alone. Henry becomes angry at Jack for the interruption, and Jack, in turn, is furious with his father for giving his mother's necklace to Evelyn. Henry dismisses Jack's complaints, telling him that the necklace is his property and that his late wife passed away a long time ago. Enraged, Jack retreats to his room, where he abuses substances to cope with the situation. Unable to confront his father, Jack turns to drugs as his only escape. Later that night, Marvin tries to visit Henry's room to talk, but the door is locked from the inside. The episode concludes with Evelyn returning to the main house from the servant quarters, only to find Henry's lifeless body on the floor. The story then shifts back to Henry's funeral, where Evelyn stands, lost in thought about her late husband, knowing she faces a difficult future. Meanwhile, Marvin asks Evelyn to speak privately and drives her to a remote location. There, he offers her money to leave the house, but Evelyn refuses. Angry, Marvin abandons her in the pouring rain and drives away. When Evelyn returns to the house, she attempts to tell the police that Henry was murdered, but they dismiss her claims, insisting that the businessman's death was an accident. The next morning, Evelyn prepares for her first breakfast with her new family as Henry's widow. She joins the Thevicidate Payson family at the table. Marvin asks his son, Liam, to start getting ready for the upcoming polo match against Theva Gem's biggest rival. When the maid serves Evelyn her food, Liam and Keita are visibly disgusted by her presence and decide to leave the table. Evelyn tries to stay calm, but she becomes upset when she finds a strand of hair in her food. Seeing this, Araya causes a scene, gathering all the maids and attempting to punish the one who prepared Evelyn's meal by pouring the curry over her. However, Evelyn stops Araya, not wanting the maid to be punished. Macy steps in and mentions that the hair in the food looks similar to Araya's, making Evelyn realize that Araya had deliberately tried to make things difficult for her. Meanwhile, At the company office, Jack tries to convince the board members of Theva Gems to appoint him as the sole executive of the company. When Marvin arrives, he finds out and stops the board from voting. The two brothers argue about who is more deserving of running the business, though the truth is that neither of them is worthy of his family legacy. Back at the Thevisited Payson house, Evelyn is in Henry's room when Olivia, a fellow maid, arrives. Olivia warns Evelyn that she's not safe in the house because Henry's family despises her. Despite this, Evelyn insists on staying, determined to uncover the truth behind Henry's death. Shortly afterward, Araya invites Evelyn to a charity event, referring to her as Henry's widow. Araya offers to ensure Evelyn is properly dressed for the event, taking her to a designer for a custom gown. That evening, the housemaids are watching a show in which Araya stars as an actress. Caillou, the maid who is involved with Marvin, shows up and wears one of Araya's dresses. Caillou drinks some wine at the house bar, but ends up throwing up from the alcohol. A flashback reveals how Caillou's boyfriend, Tia, introduced her to Marvin, and she was hired as a maid at the Thevisited Payson household. Tia was already employed by the family as their driver. Marvin, clearly attracted to Caillou, allowed her to join as a maid. In the present, Marvin meets with the family lawyer, Crit, and tries to bribe him into changing Henry's will so that Marvin becomes the sole beneficiary. Crit refuses, even turning down a diamond bribe. Frustrated by this, Marvin calls Tia and gives him some orders. Marvin, already feeling upset, becomes further irritated when Caillou tells him she's pregnant with his child. Angry, Marvin assaults Caillou and demands she get an abortion. Caillou begs him to let her keep the baby, but Marvin refuses to listen. Later, Caillou confides in Tia, telling him about the pregnancy and Marvin's reaction. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, Tia offers to take responsibility for the child. Meanwhile, Evelyn investigates the CCTV footage from the night of Henry's death. She discovers that the recordings from the cameras outside Henry's room and the balcony have been deleted. Later that evening, Evelyn arrives at the black tie charity event in a red gown, only to find that everyone else, including Araya and the other guests, is dressed in black and white. Realizing that Araya had tricked her into wearing the red dress to humiliate her, Evelyn feels deeply embarrassed. Things worsen when the event host calls Evelyn to the stage to give a speech as Henry's widow. Overwhelmed by the humiliation and embarrassment, Evelyn is unable to speak, creating an awkward atmosphere. Araya then steps in, delivering the speech herself while mocking Evelyn's lack of education. She finishes her speech with an emotional tribute to Henry, further highlighting Evelyn's discomfort. Jack feels overlooked when he realizes that, despite having prepared a speech for the event, he hasn't been invited to speak. Later at the event, Marvin shows Crit a video of his daughter Amy using drugs at a club. He blackmails Crit into altering Henry's will according to his wishes, threatening Amy's safety if Crit doesn't comply. Meanwhile, Evelyn is crying in the bathroom, and Tia is taking Caillou to the abortion clinic, unable to handle Marvin's pressure, forcing Caillou to abort the baby. That night, Evelyn resigns from being a part of the Thevisited Payson family and returns to her duties as a maid, telling Araya she no longer wants to be associated with the family. This is exactly what Araya had hoped for, and she humiliates Evelyn by pressing her foot on her head, treating her like a dog. In the next scene, Kita is showing off her outfit designs to her photographer friends, Dom and Abel. Dom suggests that Olivia model the outfit for the photos. Though Olivia is hesitant, she has no choice but to follow orders. She poses in the dress and looks stunning, receiving praise from Dom and Abel, which makes Kita jealous. Kita then humiliates Olivia by demanding she change out of the dress in front of everyone. When Olivia refuses, Kita forcibly strips the dress off her, leaving her naked in front of her friends. Kita even instructs Dom to take a picture of Olivia in her vulnerable state. Embarrassed, Olivia is given Abel's jacket to cover herself. Later that evening, as Olivia bathes Kita's dog, she receives a call from her sister, who tells her they need more money for their mother's treatment. Olivia insists that her sister continue her studies while she takes care of the finances. Just then, Kita enters the room and assaults Olivia for being on the phone during work hours, demanding that she finish designing her collection after tending to the dog. Meanwhile, the head maid, Yupin, asks Evelyn to clean the storeroom since she's back to her duties as a maid. Once Henry's widow, Evelyn now serves food at the table instead of sitting with the family, and she's back in her maid's uniform. While cleaning the storeroom, Evelyn finds a butterfly that Henry had collected for her. She recalls the night Henry proposed to her, flashing back to when she stored the dead butterfly for Henry's collection. As Keita gets ready to leave for a nightclub party, Macy tells her that Jack is insisting she go to France, while Keita prefers to study in New York. At the club, Liam shows up where Keita is hanging out with her friends. It's clear that Keita and Liam are secretly involved, as Keita becomes jealous when a girl approaches Liam. After the party, Liam's driver, Joke, takes Keita and Liam home. While Joke is driving, Keita and Liam kiss in the back seat, confirming their hidden relationship. The next day, the Thevicidate Payson family gathers to hear Henry's will. Crit arrives to read it, and Araya insists that Evelyn stays to listen as well. Crit announces that Henry left a 10% stake in Thevigames to Macy and 15% to Araya. Jack is given 30% of the company, while Marvin receives 45%, naming him as the heir of the family business. Everyone is stunned that Henry didn't leave any of his wealth to Evelyn. Jack, feeling insulted by the small share he received despite being the eldest son, refuses to accept the will and tells Crit he'll have it investigated. Meanwhile, Araya and Marvin celebrate their victory, with Araya taunting Evelyn, reminding her that Henry left her nothing and she no longer has a place in the house. That night, Evelyn goes to meet Jack in his room. She returns his late mother's necklace to him and discusses Henry's death. Evelyn tells Jack that Marvin was the last person to see Henry alive, and that she witnessed Marvin leaving Henry's room in a rage. She claims that Marvin even threatened to kill her, and she fears that Marvin might have killed Henry. However, Jack refuses to believe Evelyn because she has no solid evidence against Marvin. Evelyn, determined, promises Jack that she will find proof and come back to show it to him. She begins searching for the CCTV footage from that night, which has mysteriously gone missing from the records. Later that night, Evelyn and Olivia sit outside the servants' quarters. Noticing Evelyn's sadness, Olivia tries to comfort her. The two maids have a few drinks in Olivia's room and chat about the dress collection Olivia is working on for Keita. During their conversation, Evelyn learns that Olivia's laptop contains the video files from the camera on Keita's dog's collar. Evelyn, shocked, watches the footage from the night of Henry's death and sees Liam leaving the surveillance room shortly after Henry died. It becomes clear that Liam must have stolen the missing footage. The next morning, when Jack arrives at the company building, he finds his access card no longer works, barring him from entering his old office. Marvin is now in control of the company and is making all the decisions. Jack confronts Marvin, who informs him that he has removed Jack from the company's board of executives. Jack is furious, but Marvin shows no remorse for his brother. That night, Dom and Abel find Olivia working on the outfit designs for Keita. Keita overhears her friends mocking her and, upset, rushes to Liam, seeking comfort. She asks Liam to take her away from this cruel world, but Liam tells her to wait a little longer, promising they will move to New York together. Frustrated, Keita returns to her studio and, in a fit of anger, injures Olivia by forcing her hand into a sewing machine, accusing her of trying to steal her designs. Keita believes Olivia wants to claim her creations as her own, so she punishes her. Olivia, in pain, runs out of the house with her injured fingers and encounters Joke. Seeing her condition, Joke rushes Olivia to the hospital to get her bleeding hand treated. The following evening, Marvin hosts a party to celebrate his new position as president of Thevigames. Before the party, Marvin meets Liam and hugs him, apologizing for not being there for him all these years. At the party, Evelyn, back to her duties as a maid, serves drinks while Araya humiliates her in front of the guests. Araya sarcastically suggests Evelyn should try to catch the attention of one of the many billionaires at the party. When a guest asks why Evelyn, as Henry's widow, is working as a maid, Araya responds that Evelyn never fit in with the family and is more comfortable in the role of a maid. As Marvin makes a grand entrance onto the stage, he shocks the guests with a dramatic display of diamonds, causing everyone to scramble for them. Jack, however, stands still, glaring at Marvin with anger. Despite this, Jack gives a speech congratulating his younger brother on his success, but it's all a facade deep down. Jack resents Marvin and wants the wealth for himself. Afterward, a promotional video plays, highlighting Marvin as the star of Thevigames. Suddenly, the video is interrupted by a live stream from Keita's studio, showing Keita and Liam in an intimate moment. Shocked, Araya faints, and Marvin rushes to stop the video, but it's too late. Jack storms into the studio and finds Keita in a compromising position with her cousin. Enraged, Jack attacks Liam, but Macy intervenes to protect her daughter. Liam flees the studio, only to be confronted by Marvin outside. Marvin angrily accuses Liam of ruining his future as president of Thiva Games. In response, Liam fires back, reminding Marvin that he should be thankful after all. It was Liam who hid the CCTV footage of Marvin killing Henry. It turns out that Marvin is even more ruthless than Liam. Meanwhile, Evelyn finds the missing CCTV footage in Liam's room. When Liam returns to his room to retrieve the CD containing the video, he discovers it's gone. Furious, he storms out of the house and speeds away in his car. Marvin sends Tia to bring Liam back home, but a biker begins chasing Liam's car. The biker eventually blocks Liam's path, forcing him to exit the vehicle. The biker then brutally assaults Liam, leaving him severely injured and alone in the middle of the road. Meanwhile, back at the house, Macy is horrified when Keita confesses to her parents that she loves Liam. In a flashback from a few years ago, we see Liam driving drunk and accidentally killing a pedestrian in a car crash. Fearing his father's wrath and imprisonment, Liam framed his driver, Joke, for the crime. In the present, Liam is in critical condition due to the severe injuries to his ribs. The doctors inform Marvin and Araya that Liam's heart isn't functioning properly, and he will need a heart transplant, which deeply stresses them out. Back at home, Macy offers to use her father's connections to get Liam the heart transplant he needs, but Jack disagrees. Jack argues that Liam should suffer after bringing shame to the family with his affair with Keita, which has caused their family to be ridiculed online. Meanwhile, Keita demands to visit Liam in the hospital, but Jack forbids her. Furious, Keita argues with her parents, accusing them of never truly loving her and claiming that Liam is the only person who genuinely cares for her. Macy tries to convince Jack to understand Keita's feelings, but he shuts her down. At the same time, Evelyn confronts Olivia, asking if she was the one who leaked the video of Keita and Liam's affair, but Olivia doesn't give a straight answer. Later, Evelyn brings the CCTV footage of Marvin entering Henry's room before his death to Jack. Jack finally believes Evelyn and concludes that Marvin orchestrated Henry's death. He plans to use the footage against Marvin to secure his share of the company. The next day, Jack takes the footage to the police, requesting that they reopen the investigation. Meanwhile, Evelyn can't find Olivia anywhere in the bungalow. When she asks Yupin, she discovers that Olivia was fired due to a mistake she made. Yupin also informs the maids that the police have returned to the house to reinvestigate Henry's death, asking for their cooperation. The police question the maids one by one and learn about Evelyn's recent marriage to Henry. Evelyn is also questioned and explains how she had urged the detectives to consider the possibility of murder. Later, a police officer tells Jack that there is enough evidence to arrest Marvin, but they will wait for him to return from the hospital. However, the police receive a call from a higher-up, ordering them to drop the investigation. Jack is stunned as the police leave without arresting Marvin, realizing that Marvin's connections have protected him once again. That night, Macy comforts Evelyn, who is upset that Marvin escaped justice due to his wealth. Macy also commends Kay for taking care of Henry's beloved garden after his death. The next morning, Jack arrives at the office only to find out that Marvin has fired him for going to the police. Jack's belongings are removed from the office, and he learns that not only is he no longer an executive, but he is no longer part of the company at all. Jack also discovers that the police have stopped investigating the case and have handed over the CCTV footage to their superiors, meaning the evidence is now gone. Meanwhile, Evelyn becomes increasingly concerned when she receives no response from Olivia, despite repeatedly calling her. She goes to Olivia's house, only to be told that Olivia hasn't returned home in months. This news leaves Evelyn worried about Olivia's safety. That night, Joke is released from the hospital after being injured while trying to save Liam from the biker. Marvin picks him up in his car and asks Tia to drive them both to a bridge. When they arrive, Marvin orders Tia to push Joke off the bridge, believing that Joke is the real biker who attacked his son, Liam. However, Tia confesses that he was the one who beat up Liam, angry at Marvin for forcing Caillou to have an abortion. Upon learning this, Marvin threatens to kill Joke and tells him to push Tia off the bridge instead. Joke refuses, but Tia jumps off the bridge himself to protect Joke. Meanwhile, Olivia returns to the house and discovers the maids watching a video of her being held in a cage. In the video, she pleads to be freed, but is treated like an animal for some unknown mistake she made earlier. The video is shown as a warning to the other maids, demonstrating what will happen if they disobey their masters. Next, there's a flashback of a childhood fight between Marvin and Jack. While playing, Jack accused Marvin of cheating, and their father, Henry, punish them both, urging them to find better ways to resolve conflicts. Back in the present, Marvin tells Jack to move out of the family house, accusing him of conspiring with the police to have Marvin arrested. Marvin says he can't tolerate someone in his house who betrays him. Araya then asks Marvin to accompany her to the hospital to visit Liam, who is still in critical condition. Meanwhile, Macy tells Kita over the phone that Liam is in need of a heart transplant. Kita, who is in New York for a fashion course, expresses her concern about Liam's health. Just then, Jack overhears Macy's conversation with Kita. Although Macy fears Jack will scold her for discussing Liam's health, Jack instead asks her to use his father's connections to secure a heart transplant for Liam. However, he also reveals his plan to blackmail Araya into giving him 10% of her shares in Thiva Games in exchange for the transplant, which would give him a total of 50% of the company, allowing him to become president and stay in the house. Kita overhears all of this through the video call, realizing Jack is using Liam's condition for his own gain. In the servants' quarters, Evelyn tries to turn off the TV showing the video of Olivia in the cage, but Yupin turns it back on, explaining that Olivia is being punished for her wrongdoing, and Marvin wants the other maids to witness it to keep them in line. That night, Caillou asks Joke about Tian's whereabouts and breaks down when Joke doesn't respond. She realizes that Tia is gone, and Joke embraces her to comfort her in this painful moment. The next day, Macy meets with Araya and offers to help with Liam's heart transplant in exchange for her shares in Thiva Games. Araya, overjoyed, agrees to the deal without hesitation and even hugs Macy in gratitude. Meanwhile, Olivia is returned to the servants' quarters after her punishment, and Evelyn takes care of her. Later that night, Marvin summons Evelyn to his room and humiliates her by taking a photo of her skirt. He shows her intimate photos of her that Henry had taken previously, reminding her that she, along with the other maids, belongs to him, and she must act accordingly. The next day, Marvin instructs Yupin to gather all the maids and menservants, including Evelyn, Olivia, Caillou, and Joke, to prepare for an important event that Marvin has planned. He emphasizes that the event is significant and expects everyone to work hard. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Araya signs away 10% of her shares to Jack after Liam finds a successful heart donor, thanks to Macy's help. Macy delivers the signed documents to Jack and reminds him of a promise he made to her, though the nature of that promise remains unclear. Afterward, the couple returns home and is greeted by Marvin at the entrance, who thanks Macy for her assistance with Liam's surgery. Jack informs Marvin that he is now taking control of the company due to his larger shareholding. However, Marvin surprises Jack by revealing that he has acquired most of Araya's shares, leaving Jack with only a 1% surplus, which is insufficient for him to secure the presidency. Marvin mocks Jack for his oversight. Upset by this revelation, Jack demands Macy to halt the heart transplant, but it's already too late. The following day is the yacht party, where Marvin is busy entertaining a business associate named Carlos. After a while, Jack arrives, and when Marvin gets distracted by the water, Jack takes the opportunity to impress Carlos with his favorite drinks. Upon Marvin's return, he attempts to blackmail Jack by threatening to jeopardize his deal with Carlos. Meanwhile, Joke and Evelyn are scheming something significant, but Joke is anxious about completing his task. That evening, Jack, Marvin, and Carlos engage in a game of poker. During the game, Evelyn accidentally spills Marvin's drink on the table, catching Carlos's attention, who then expresses his interest in her. Marvin suggests making the game more intriguing by betting Evelyn. Ultimately, Carlos wins the game against both brothers and forcibly takes Evelyn to his room, where he assaults her. Later, Jack, Marvin, and Joke are seen returning home by boat, but suddenly, the boat explodes in flames. Everyone on the yacht is shocked as flames shoot high into the sky. Earlier in the story, Marvin and Jack had been returning home on the boat with Joke, but Marvin had to go alone initially. Jack decided to accompany him, reasoning that Marvin was too inebriated to navigate alone. In the middle of the water, Marvin begins to lose consciousness after drinking wine from Joke. Joke attempts to kill the semi-conscious Marvin by tossing him into the water, but hesitates due to his nervousness. Thad observes the scene silently. At that moment, Jack stands up and accuses Marvin of causing their father's death, then pushes him off the boat. Jack instructs Joke to set the boat ablaze as per their plan and jumps into the water. Joke grabs a life jacket and ignites the boat before also diving into the water. Meanwhile, Carlos watches the boat engulfed in flames from his hotel room with a sea view, while Evelyn sneaks out to find Olivia and Caillou as Yupin rushes to call the police. After some time, the rescue team locates Jack and Joke but cannot find Marvin. Jack pretends to be concerned for their mother and urges the rescue team to act swiftly. Moments later, they announce that Marvin has been found alive underwater. Caillou, Olivia, and Evelyn worrying for Joke since Marvin's survival means he will undoubtedly seek revenge. Evelyn urges Jack to take action, fearing that Marvin will retaliate for their involvement. A flashback reveals Jack plotting Marvin's murder with Evelyn, enlisting the help of other staff members to carry out their plan. In the present, Jack rushes to the rescue team, bringing his brother to the nearest clinic. He bribes the rescue operators to transport Marvin to a major hospital far from the city. Despite Marvin's critical state, they take him to the city hospital. During the ride, Jack reflects on his childhood and cherished moments with Marvin, but also recalls the mistreatment he suffered from him throughout their lives. Tragically, Marvin dies in the ambulance before they reach the hospital. At Marvin's funeral, Jack delivers a eulogy praising his younger brother and announces that he will be taking over Thea Gemps following Marvin's untimely passing. Araya is present, mourning the loss of her husband. The next day, Jack declares his presidency over Thea Gemps in front of all the stakeholders and proceeds to dispose of all Marvin and his father's belongings from the company's main office. That night, Crit calls Jack and confesses that Marvin had blackmailed him into forging their father's will, threatening him with the safety of his family if he didn't comply. Hearing this, Jack demands that Crit bring their late father's will back to Thailand. Jack then loses his composure and tries to punish Araya for Marvin's actions, forcing her out of their home and breaking all the photo frames of Marvin. Yupin tries to intervene, but Jack continues to berate Araya for her knowledge of the will's changes. Later, Macy confronts Jack, asking for a divorce and her share of Thea Gemps as per their agreement, but Jack refuses to give her anything. He asserts his dominance over the staff and dismisses the employees when he finds the food unsatisfactory. Later that day, Jack invites two businessmen, Cora and Fatty, from their rival company, Gentle Gemps, over for dinner, intending to discuss selling Thea Gemps. Meanwhile, Evelyn meets with the police, identifying herself as Henry's wife, and requests a reinvestigation into his death. She urges them to exhume Henry's grave for an autopsy. At the same time, Araya learns that Marvin's death was caused by an overdose of alcohol, which contributed to him falling into the water. That night, Macy once again confronts Jack about their divorce, reminding him that their marriage was arranged by his father, Henry. This time, Jack agrees to the divorce, but refuses to give her any share of the company. Later, the business partners from the rival company arrive at Jack's home for dinner. During their meal, Jack offers not only to sell Thea Gemps, but also his house. He explains to Fatty that his father had forced him into the diamond business, and now that his father is gone, he wants to live life on his own terms, which includes selling both the company and the house. The business partners find the deal enticing, as it would make them the leading force in the diamond industry, but they remain suspicious of Jack's true motives. Back at the house, Yupin pleads with Jack not to sell the home, explaining that Henry built it with love, and that the servants living there are like family. Jack, however, dismisses her, stating that there's no family, they're only employees who are paid to serve. He mistreats the elderly Yupin and stands firm on his decision to sell. Later, in the garden, Yupin confides in Evelyn, expressing regret for covering up Jack's mistakes throughout his childhood, which only made him arrogant instead of shaping him into a good person. On the other hand, Macy packs up her things and leaves the house. She tells Evelyn to take care of herself, admiring her strength for enduring so much. The next day, Crit arrives at the Thevasidet Payson family house and finds that Jack is the only family member still living there. Crit shows Jack a video of Henry signing his will, which reveals that Henry had named Evelyn as the sole heir of his assets, with Evelyn standing by his side during the signing. Jack is shocked to realize that Evelyn had known about the will all along, but had kept it hidden. He begins to question her true intentions. The following day, Jack confronts Evelyn as she locks up the Thevasidet Payson house. He accuses her of being responsible for Henry's death, but Evelyn merely laughs at him. The story then flashes back 5 years, when Evelyn was first hired as a maid by the Thevasidet Payson family. Macy and Araya conducted the interviews and demanded that the maids strip to maintain control over them. Those who complied remained employed, while the others were dismissed. Evelyn was one of the maids who stayed. Yupin later escorted Evelyn to the servants' quarters and provided her with a uniform. Even being 2 minutes late would result in harsh scolding from Yupin. However, Evelyn quickly adapted to the family's strict rules and became the top servant. Over time, Evelyn learned just how dysfunctional the Thevesidet Payson family was. She saw Marvin having an affair with Caillou and discovered Jack's drug addiction. She also found out that their fellow maid, Dow, was being assaulted by Henry. Evelyn expressed her fascination with butterflies and moths, prompting Henry to gather them for her. His interest in her grew as he noticed her passion. One evening, Evelyn attempted to confide in Caillou about possible mistreatment in the household. Although Caillou had just returned from Marvin's room, she denied being assaulted, as she hoped to experience the same for personal gain in the future. Evelyn later discovered that Dow had died by suicide and was assigned to be Henry's servant from that point onward. Subsequently, Henry summoned Evelyn to his greenhouse, where he took explicit photos of her while she lay on the ground. He coerced her into drinking alcohol and poured it over her body, leading to an intimate encounter. Despite being an ordinary servant, Evelyn was terrified, but gradually accepted this new reality and maintained a physical relationship with Henry. Over the years, Evelyn grew closer to him and expressed her desire to become his heir, especially after Henry conveyed his hopelessness regarding Jack and Marvin. Consequently, he decided to designate Evelyn as his successor and pledged all his assets to her with the expectation that she would eventually bear his child. On the night of Henry's birthday, Evelyn tainted his tea with Jack's drug. When Jack confronted his father, she went to Marvin's room and presented him with a fake termination letter, inciting his anger. Furious, Marvin stormed into Henry's room for a confrontation, but Henry, still under the influence of the drugs, hallucinated being pushed off the balcony by butterflies, leading to his demise. In the present, Jack uncovers the entirety of Evelyn's scheme and holds her responsible for his father's death, as well as for instigating Marvin's murder. Fueled by rage, he intends to kill Evelyn and reclaim his inheritance, but she counters that Jack acted of his own volition. She manipulates him into believing he poisoned his father and killed Marvin. To support her claims, Evelyn shows Jack footage from the boat where he had choked and pushed Marvin overboard, asserting that Joke recorded the whole incident. She reveals that the household servants collaborated with her to undermine their masters due to the mistreatment they endured. Angry, Jack attempts to strangle Evelyn, but the servants intervene, capturing him on camera while he tries to harm his late father's wife. They threaten to ruin the reputation of the Thevesidet Payson family, prompting Jack to relent. Weeks later, Jack is seen drinking at a local bar when he spots Macy being interviewed on the news. Reports of Jack murdering Henry and Marvin circulate, as per Evelyn's plan, leading to his public disgrace. Meanwhile, Macy feigns ignorance regarding Jack's crimes and relocates to New York, attempting to reach out to Keita, who disregards her attempts. On the other hand, Araya auditions for a new acting role, crying as she recalls Liam's death, who did not survive his heart transplant. On his way out of the bar, Jack is attacked and left for dead by robbers. As a result, the entire Thevesidet Payson family collapses due to Evelyn and the servants' actions, stemming from their prior mistreatment. According to Room Garage's will, all his wealth, including a 100% stake in Theva Gemps, is transferred to Evelyn. Consequently, the bungalow comes under the control of the servants, who now relish their newfound freedom. The servants gather for a group photo in the house, replacing the Thevesidet Payson family portrait with a picture of all the maids and male servants. In the end, the maids celebrate at the same dinner table where the Thevesidet Payson family once gathered, with Evelyn dancing on the table as the rest of the staff join in the festivities, celebrating their triumph. So guys, this is the conclude of this story. You can watch another videos like this. Thank you.